Orb presents the Season 7 wrap-up.
This is Gary Butterfield.
This is Cole Ross.
And welcome to the end for now, ... question mark. Hopefully not forever. At least for now.
At least for now. This is it. This is the last episode of Orb before we go on ice, before the movie comes out.
Yes. Real quick, if the movie comes out, there's been a lot of people talking about this merger.
Yeah.
Which, I'm going to be honest, people bringing that to my attention annoyed me in a way that was not fair to them. I was like, I don't want to fucking think about that.
Yeah.
Like, come on. We don't know yet. But I obviously really hope that's not the case. Maybe not a great idea to let only like 3 companies own every fucking thing that ever existed.
I know, right? Because one dipshit can get it at the top and say, animation. Yeah. And I was about to say, hopefully it's far enough along in production that they can't throw it away. Nope. That won't help it.
We're a scant 20 years away. Well, and also it's not like our boys are known for their lightning speed. I think they've been doing some voice stuff, but I don't know. Even if there was no question about it coming out, I was braced to wait upwards of 2 years.
Yeah.
Easy. To get a release date and get like a teaser. Like, we got slow boys.
Yes.
The Batwoman movie or Batgirl movie getting canceled, and the developers or the producer saying unsalvageable made me so curious about it.
It really does make me curious.
They released a Morbius. Morbius salvageable. This unsalvageable?
I mean, different studios. Yeah. I saw conspiracy theories about that. Like, they're trying to get a Morbius going. Like, people are going to start talking about it. It just, no, I just think Warner's being dipshits because that's what giant media companies
do.
Yeah. I got no skin in the game because I don't like DC movies. And also I had no idea that a Batgirl movie was being made. The cast seemed interesting, but
I had no idea either.
Yeah.
It was cool that Michael Keaton was coming back, but
yeah.
I don't know. You should be able to, by the time you're 20, if you're ever lost in the woods, you should know 3 different ways to make a Morbius. Just out of things you find in the forest. Yeah. So,
I don't know enough about Morbius to continue the joking on that. So
neither do I, man. Surprising everyone. Like, I know he's a living vampire, whatever the fuck that means. So we're here to talk about the season 7 special features, which are pretty scant. Mm-hmm. Read your responses and do our first and worst. Yeah, on season 7, and reflect a little bit on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get started with some deleted scenes.
Let's do extended scenes, really. There are only a couple of these that were deleted, and there were ones we knew about from the commentary, saying like, we had to, drop this, specifically like final outros, shift things around to be, to have different post credits. But there's some interesting character stuff here, like Curse of the Haunted Problem. Apparently, Hatred and Tiny Feet's dad were codependent enablers, which is fun.
I like this a lot, like because it ends on the good button of it, like I came over my basket. How do you do? And it's great. And then he's like, oh, he shot me. And that's a funnier button. And then, but the idea of Hank being like, then what happened, and being like, well, we became drinking buddies, and then just horrible alcoholics. Like, don't drink, son. I wondered whether they cut this a little bit because of stereotypes around First Nations, Indigenous people drinking.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see preferring to be safe.
Yeah, I was curious about that because this is, or they just like the other button better.
Yeah.
It is kind of button after button.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The other thing that I like is they cut Dean asking about Triana after he had invited Orpheus over. And we find out, it's like, hey, so what's Triana up to? Oh, moving in with her boyfriend against her father's wishes. He's like, oh, that's a bad idea.
I like that. It makes sense that Dean, like, I'm glad that we didn't spend more time on the plot. Of Dean and Triana. Like, I respect them being like, we did everything we could do with that. It's weird that he wouldn't even ask about her.
Yeah.
This made sense. I understand it doesn't add a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
to it. So I understand why it was cut, but it felt good and in character and right to me.
Because you would ask, like, hey, what's she up to? Is she doing good? Like, yeah. At the very least, a pulse check,
Yeah. The Rockwell affair has a bit with Scare Bear standing guard outside a community center where the guild is holding their meeting. My opinion on Scare Bear has so soured on revisiting season 7. I don't give a shit. Scare Bear can absolutely suck my entire ass. Like, I don't know. Just fuck this Deus Ex Machina shit. Screw a Scare Bear. Great design.
Misused.
Yeah.
High cost of loathing. We learn what triggered the alarm. It wasn't just the German tourists being in the room. They went out onto the balcony from Hank's room and tried to get back in. The door locked behind them.
Such a key thing to put in the script.
I know, right?
Wait, what if they were in for a second and then tried to get back in, as opposed to just getting in the first place? It's so funny that this is a deleted scene that you watch. In the Terminus Mandate, Rusty wakes up after passing out on Denovia, and he's like, "Oh, I'm still alive." Celebrates that. Kind of cute. And then in the original ending, there's a scene with Hunter and Volcano talking about his penis being put back on wrong when he had his surgery reversed.
Yes.
I
prefer ending with the with the other, that's better to me.
I don't remember what they ended with here.
It was everybody making their decision about whether or not they were going to stay.
Oh, gotcha. I'm not super crazy about that. A lot of the buttons on this season, but I didn't need this joke.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah. Saffrex Protocol, they cut a bit with Dean. So, when he's talking to the comatose Hank, he says, "Oh, and, Dad, he told me he still masturbates." They cut off a button on that. Dean figured by the time he turned 40, you would stop masturbating.
Nope.
Like, oh boy.
Yeah, no, you're just getting started. Before you figure out a lot of new secret techniques, you get a DVD, an unmarked DVD in the mail that tells you new ways to do it. Like, yeah. So it's your career has not begun, young Dean. There's also a bit with Brock working with Helper to clean up after the slaughter of all the henchmen. Helper suggests using the boom broom, and I like Brock. I fucking hate that thing. Why? That's cute, and more Helper is good.
I always like more Helper.
Pretty limp set of deleted and extended scenes.
Yeah.
For the last season. There's one, we're going to get to it. There's one shining moment of the bonus features, I think. It's not this next thing, which is Ghost in the Problem, which is just a non-treated version of the trippy video montage that Jonas played from that episode. So if you want to see that without any surrounding context and uninterrupted, you can.
Yeah. This is akin to them giving us the full audio of Hatred's tour of the different artifacts that were in the Venture Museum.
But without jokes. Like without even attempts at jokes.
Without
no incident. Very boring.
Yeah. The opposite of this, and it really made me want more Serena in the season, because she's kind of only in 3 episodes. But just a special feature called Serena Goes Off.
This is so good. I absolutely love this. So it was all of her getting mad at, people. It would show the scene where Serena would be talking to somebody, usually Rocco, but other people. And then it would show the script of what she was supposed to say. And then just the several paragraphs of improv meanness she would do. It's so fun.
Kristen Milotti is so good at this.
Yeah. It's a fucking joy to see. It's really good.
Because she does the line like, "Oh yeah, you want me to date in the family and have with a bunch of flipper babies?" Yeah, but she goes on for like a whole minute and then ends on it's. I love this one, and they got to have like special staircases. Is that what you want from me?
It's very funny. I love the specificity of calling Rocco a piece of white dog shit. The first time I realized that like white dog shit thing, there's in the Sarah Silverman program, which has a song where it's like, what happened to that white dog shit from the 70s? Because I feel like I used to see white dog shit all the time, and now I don't. And I don't know. I don't want to get into chemtrail shit, but it's just a little bit concerning And it's a little added bit of specificity that makes that insult really good.
And just her, like her extended going off on Rocco, not knowing which video game consoles are current.
Find a PlayStation 2. Now do you think it's the fucking 2000s?
Do you know what? I'm seriously concerned. You don't know when this is. Do you have dementia? Because
who's the president? Don't fucking answer that.
It's hereditary, or environmental. Maybe you were around lead paint. Because honestly, that would fucking track with you.
It's so good.
She doesn't miss a beat as she's going. You can't even hear her thinking it up.
Yeah.
Kristen Milotti is a fucking treasure is what I'm finding.
Absolute treasure. It made me want more stuff with Kristen Milotti.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh, like this is somebody who is very funny who I don't really know. This is gonna make somebody mad. But I don't, apparently she's in How I Met Your Mother, Wolf of Wall Street, just a lot of stuff I just didn't happen to catch. I had no animus towards this person, but it makes me want to seek her out because she's so funny.
Agreed. Yeah, I was surprised. They had mentioned the fact that she, went off on these improv jags in the VO sessions during the commentaries. But I was pleasantly surprised that they actually compiled these.
And they've done that kind of thing before on the special features, and this is a funnier version of them. Like the thing with Diamond Backdraft is great.
Yeah.
I like this a little bit more.
Yeah. The Diamond Backdraft gets a lot of love from me just because Larry Murphy and because that performance was very much like Teddy from Bob's Burgers.
Yeah. It's it is also very cute. It's slightly less impressive to me than this, which is just absolutely dense. With meanness.
I'm over here Googling homework.
Yeah. I can't even Google in the living room. Very good shit. Now to read your responses about this. I'll go ahead and get started here with Rose. Rose says, Season 7 feels very internally at odds with the rest of the show. The Peril partnership having very little setup nor payoff within the season, Oriana and the rest of the not Avengers not appearing, no real closure to the Monarch's Blue Morpho crimes being revealed to Dr. Mrs. The attention to world and character building in this season was significantly more loose than prior seasons. I'm glad for the high points and the laughs, but revisiting did take some shine off the apple. The biggest offender to me is the current series finale and the Tenning. We spent a whole 2 seasons learning that the Monarch is not powerful enough to sit at the big kids table. Suddenly, he's supposed to be a top tier threat, while he's still worse off now than he was in the first episode. Also, can you imagine Wide Whale and Rocco going through with that drama club production when Whale was 10? Never thought about that. That's a very funny idea.
That is a very funny idea, and also I imagine Wide Whale would specifically pay money not to go through with that.
Yeah, just like we don't do that in New York.
Yeah,
this is the merging of the two branches. They probably did not do that bullshit.
Probably not.
It's not like Monstroso was going to do that either.
Yeah.
But also 100% agree on all those things. Like that's we are simpatico, Rose.
We are.
Yeah.
Pondo says, my first complete tour of the Venture Brothers was 3 seasons long. I was a kid and I was hyped for every drop. I grew up with this thing, deeply invested, engaged with fan circles, and yet somehow I missed the Halloween special until after I had watched season 6. This is consequential because I and many other enthusiasts, we were completely unaware of the scene where Dean is told he's a clone. Thing is, I preferred that version of the show's story. In the full canon, Dean learns this information and reacts to it by reinventing himself. The story many, if not most of us, consumed was markedly different. Dean showed up sad one day, and we were given a season of space to be nervous about it, paralleling what his family was going through.
That's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know.
It was a big mistake to call that a special, because specials get filed differently.
Yeah, like 100%, it's a sloppy thing in terms of author intent. It's interesting, the idea that could be an intended effect of having him be depressed as a mystery. That like that's I think what Pondo was saying is like the that had a pleasure as well.
Yes.
Spending a season without knowing, and that's a cool idea when things like that happen accidentally. I can't speak to what that would be like because I didn't have that experience. But it's neat when mistakes lead to unforeseen outcomes like that.
Yeah. That's good that it worked both ways.
Yeah. John says, I stumbled across Orb sometime around the point you guys were finishing up the second season, and I've been listening weekly ever since. I've been a Venture Brothers fan since around 2008 and always found it to be a show that was tough to share my love for with others. Most of my friends never seemed to like the show when they watched a couple of episodes, or just flat out never would check it out in the first place. So as a result, I have been a silent fan for many years. This podcast was one of the first major pieces of Venture Brothers fan media I ever immersed myself in, and I gotta say, you both did a great job throughout the series of being properly informative and entertaining overall. Disagree with some of your points expressed during the show, looking more at you, Gary, than Cole. Haha. Yeah. All right, John. But I truly wanted to write in to thank you guys for making Orb in the first place. Venture Brothers is a niche show that doesn't have the biggest audience, so it's nice you guys helped shine a little more light onto it. It has been a great to listen to you guys talk about Venture Brothers for over the past year. John. P.S. Just need to clarify a point made in the Revenge Society episode. That episode claims that Ours is the most underrated David Bowie album. Gary rightly contested that point, but failed to state that the correct answer, the most underrated David Bowie album, is Reality from 2003. Anyway, thanks for making Orb. I really do appreciate it. Reality. Huh.
I don't. What's reality like?
To me, and I don't want to get further on John's bad side here. To me, it is still a little too adult contempo leaning.
Okay.
So it's after he came back. So David Bowie did his 90s identity crisis and did a bunch of industrial stuff with Trent Reznor.
Mm-hmm.
He came back with Ours, which was extremely adult contempo.
Okay.
And then took a long break and came back with an album called Heathen that I'm rather fond of.
Okay.
That was like the return to form album, for him. This is the next album for that. And it still has just a little bit too much of that to me. It's probably like the David Bowie album I know the least.
Okay.
Cause it never really grabbed me. Like each song is a little bit too long. It's not my fave.
Okay.
But he does cover Jonathan Richman's Pablo Picasso, and that's a great song. So it's, and I will admit I need to spend more time listening to Reality.
Now, I don't know how this became the show where you explain things to me.
I don't know. It's because it's all these Bowie things, music references. Yeah. It's because Bowie's a major fixture of the first 4 seasons of this show.
True. Yeah. Bowie and comic book shit.
Yeah. I mean that you nailed it in one, actually. Like it's both of those things.
Yeah.
So, it's Marvel and Bowie. Yeah.
Oh man, it is really funny, like the different kinds of reactions that you and I get. Just some of these sort of the throwaway there, looking more at you, Gary, than Cole. I am oftentimes as negative as Gary is. I'm just diplomatic about it, and for some reason that gets me. That's like a shield that is put up around me. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a weird thing too. Cause like, this is not calling out John. This is a grander context of our critical work, and everything. But, it's really funny is one way to put it. Another way to put it is it's really fucking infuriating and like infantilizing. Like I get mad on your behalf when this shit happens, where somebody's just like, oh, Cole, you didn't say it in a passionate way, so I don't actually consider your opinion. Even like you and I will say the same thing, and somebody will be like, "Oh man, I disagree about that, Gary." Yeah. Like, we said the same fucking thing. Like we're in total lockstep on this, you weirdos. Again, not John. Right. People who yell at us for no good reason. Yeah. But it's just a funny way how the medium is the message, and like tone matters more than like what it's kind of depressing. It's like one of those things where like, the way you say something is more important than what you say, which is not a reality that I'm a big fan of.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, it is a persistent dynamic.
Yeah. And by persistent, we mean more than a decade old. Like if it sounds like we're being oversensitive, just imagine something like this happening to you for 10 years or more. It's not minor in our life.
Right.
I'm not trying to make John feel bad for invoking that at all.
No,
not even remotely. Like John was nice about it, and that's all that matters. It's just some people who do it are dicks, and infantilizing and shitty. So,
yeah. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
I didn't mean, I don't know if
Thanks,
that came
John.
through.
Clink.
Ding. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hit a coffee mug with a screwdriver because I'm fiddling with a screwdriver.
A toast to you.
Matthew writes, now that we're past the spoiler wall on all issues involved, I want to pitch an episode of this show that I literally dreamed one time, nearly in its entirety. Sitting comfortably, then I shall begin. Even though it isn't explored much, Rick and Morty style multiverses are a thing in the show, right? Hit show on Broadway, which means there is a universe where Rusty takes Killinger's deal to arch his brother. This means that Rusty was not tapped to build Gargantua 2's defenses, which means that the station survives, and JJ, riddled with late-stage everything cancer, sick of guild games, and just wanting to reconcile with family, might seek to do so in alternate dimensions. Evil Rusty's pursuit of JJ leads Evil Rusty and Canonical Rusty into direct conflict. You can imagine the possibility space from there. Two Hanks? How could evil Hank stay evil presented with such an opportunity? Brock versus Brock. Monarch makes out like a bandit, though, because he gets to kill Rusty to save Rusty. It's all he ever wanted. Anyway, it's nice that a show, which basically started as Johnny Quest meets Death of a Salesman, is rich enough to offer such fun possibilities. But of course, that episode wouldn't quite work. It isn't a show about confronting your choices head on. It's a show about burying them in the mundane day-to-day relationships you build and maybe making little stabs at understanding along the way. Thanks for covering the show, folks. I would have never invested the time without your infectious passion for it. Much love. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Matthew. That is a good idea.
Yeah.
Like, I can imagine someone listening to this whose eyes reflexively roll at the word multiverse because of how that's kind of in right now and because of Marvel stuff.
Yeah.
At the time this show was an active and ongoing concern, that would have been very novel.
Yes.
It also, you want to say that the Venture Brothers never just took like show idea, like, hey, this is a comic adventure cliche, we have to do it. And never use that as a springboard for an episode. That's 1,000% untrue. They definitely did that. And this would have been more interesting than some of the ones that they did. I think it's a good pitch for an episode. It's
literal Deus Ex Machina. Like, older, more successful Rusty shows up at several points.
Yeah. It's great. The big question mark on his chest, doing that duology. It's very good. I really like the idea of Dean and Hank meeting other Dean and Hanks, especially with the clone angle. There's something there. And with their character arcs being about what their upbringing did to them. How much of that is out of their hands. Like, they are victims in this, and their arcs are about shaking that off. What if they had a different upbringing? What does a Hank and Dean who had that leg up, that didn't have Rusty as a dad, what does that look like? What was their potential? I think that's a cool idea for an episode. Write a spec script.
Please do.
Riley says, I watched the show for the first time in early summer before checking out the podcast. I don't want to say listening made me like the show less, but it certainly did bring the shortcomings of the Monarch's relationship with his wife and 21 into focus. Team Monarch is my favorite group. I like 21 returning to the fold, though. I wish he had kept the Viceroy as a name, given his more equal status. But 21 and Dr. Mrs. the Monarch both care for each other and the Monarch a lot. They change in response to what happens to them, have new goals they work towards, and genuinely try to work out their relationship issues. But the Monarch is just kind of an unsupportive dick. I feel how the Monarch is wrapped up as a character is going to be key in how I feel about the movie. I don't need or even want him to stop being a villain, and I'd be fine if things end up going well or poorly for him. But given that they won't be writing more stories for the character, I hope they take the opportunity to finally give us some resolution on his relationship with Rusty, but more importantly, his wife in 21. The future Rusty from the Time Cabinet calling him Malcolm and being generally amicable is something that has me cautiously optimistic that this long-needed shakeup will finally occur. But we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah. This is, maybe wrap-up thoughts, but just in response to this, you can do a character who is unchanging, right? You can do a character who does not learn. But their circumstances have to change. Like, there has to be a consequence for it, right? Everybody cannot keep bending to them.
That's the issue, is it undercuts other characters around him.
Yeah.
It makes 21 and Dr. and Mrs. the Monarch, who went through all these changes, seem kind of like dumbasses.
Yeah.
For putting up with him.
Mm-hmm.
And just always forgiving him, always giving him a perma pass.
Yeah.
And like the thing that makes me sad about it is that having the book and reading the commentaries and stuff, it really does feel like sometimes when they don't want to change the Monarch, they just tap the, oh, he's a villain, button. Like, and sometimes even just putting that in his mouth.
Mm-hmm.
He'll just, instead of changing, his crapulence will just be him saying, I'm a fucking villain.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's just not that interesting. Have your characters be more than what their surface title is, I think.
Yeah. More than their role.
Yeah. So yeah, agreed. Like I would really like that to get more attention.
Yeah. A final response here. James says, "Hey guys, for me, the Venture Brothers and Duckfeed have always gone hand in hand in a convoluted way. I discovered both the network and this fantastic show in my first year of university nearly 6 years ago. Finding I had a glut of free time that was ostensibly for studying, I decided to finally take the plunge on two long-standing recommendations from high school friends, Venture Brothers and Dark Souls. I fell in love with both the show and the game, followed swiftly by You Two Beautiful Boys as I searched for Dark Souls podcasts and found Bonfireside Chat. Because of the strange connection, discovering your shared love of the show and eventual announcement of Orb was an absolute joy, and I've loved your coverage and insight from start to finish. Sorry if this Gustfest is running long, so on to my actual Season 7 thoughts. In short, I'm hugely divided. The Morphic trilogy was an absolute masterclass and felt like a perfect season finale. So much so that I didn't realize it wasn't the Season 6 finale because the UK's free streaming service, All4, just autoplays the next episode immediately after the post-credits. The Morphic trilogy collects and ties up so many dangling and disparate threads with such finality that everything after, though fun, feels superfluous. Those following episodes have the exact same feel as the Marvel films immediately post-Endgame. Enjoyable, but feeling unnecessary. Beyond the slight perfunctory vibe I get from everything post-Morphic trilogy, my biggest issue with Season 7 is what I feel is the culmination of what I'm stupidly calling, Braden Cameron voice, the death of Sweet Dean. Like you guys, I've always felt Dean's slow progression from the wide-eyed sweet boy we know into the dour, slightly bitter character he becomes. I found that relatable and very sad. His sleeping with Serena is the final nail in the coffin of Sweet Dean. My issue with this doesn't come from just wanting my sweet boy back, but from the lack of track laid for why both he and Serena would do this to Hank. This is because we never see either of them this season, and I feel it does both characters a disservice. Anyway, this has run way too long, but thanks for all the amazing shows you put out. Can't wait to listen to what takes the Orb spot. Go Team Venture!
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Well said. And yeah, I think that we're on the same page with that.
Yeah.
Like, we talked about this in the last episode. There's a knife twist to it in that not only did we not get that track laid, but what we were doing instead of the track was tending bullshit and peril partnership bullshit and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It wasn't that there wasn't time.
Right. And there's intention to it. They straight up said, oh, nobody cares about Dean's story.
Yeah. Yeah. Hello, I'm nobody.
Hi.
Yeah. I very much care about that, and you used to too, but yeah, generally agreed. Thank you very much for checking us out and checking out the network. Really do appreciate that.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for responding.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. When that movie comes around, we will, we'll have responses probably built into that episode. So keep an eye out, we'll put out the call for that and keep your thing open. The final little segment we'll be doing before we go into kind of wrap up thoughts are our first and worst for the season. Do that during every season thing. I will go first.
Okay.
Because I have something here. And this is an obvious answer, but I'm going to say it anyway. The Saffrox Protocol is my worst.
Yeah.
On this, I think not only it's not just what it represents, but I also think it's a bad episode of the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not enough laughs, not enough good incident, not enough good plot development. Some fun Brock action, but I think it's the worst episode of the season.
Yeah, no, it would be really hard for me to disagree with that. If I was to put a dishonorable mention, I would say the Inamorata Consequence.
What happens in that one?
That's the one where they go back to the to the compounds.
Oh, got you.
Yeah, it's where the the McManus and S464 stuff really it really begins in earnest.
Yeah, that stuff sucks. I love the guild negotiations during that, but that stuff does suck.
Yeah,
that's showing up there. What is these names? just give a negative to all of the names. The one with Novia, I think, is also not great.
Okay, yeah, the Terminus mandate.
Yes, the other stuff that happens there, the guild side of that is ironically really good.
Oh, the guild side is incredibly sweet, actually.
Yeah, I love it.
The Novia stuff feels very perfunctory. Yeah,
it just sucks. I understand they're trying to give Dr. and Mrs. the Monarch her own version of that, and invoke her history and stuff, but yeah. But yeah, I mean the scene, with Red Mantle and Dragoon.
We won.
It's so sweet. And like, we should probably watch another Downton Abbey. I wasn't on those episodes because I had COVID. It's one of my favorite moments in the series.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's like exceedingly sweet.
But lady so and so, you're such a delicious bitch.
Such a delicious bitch. There are a lot of ways they could have taken those two characters and making them family. Making them essentially an old married couple is such a good move. For them. I love them so much. Yeah. That's something, a lot of my appreciations in this show, the close read didn't help them. That's when it did. Like my first watch through of the show, I remember feeling a little like neutral, Red Mantle and Dragoon. And this, I just like loved it. Yeah. This whole run, everything with them is great. so that's, it's also a forecast manufacturer as well. There's like a good half and a bad half. Like a bunch of these episodes are bisected that way.
It's just uneven is kind of the thing. Yeah.
Yeah. How about best? What do you got?
Yeah. So for firsts, anything in the Rourke anything in the Morphic trilogy is going to be like up there, but it's hard to disentangle those. So it's hard to say. So like, I think the most consistently enjoyable, episode in the season is the Curse of the Haunted Problem. I like that quite a bit. It may be a little bit because it's a departure, but like in terms of, if we're pulling from the rest of the season and treating the Morphic trilogy as its own kind of separate thing. I mean, the Unicorn in Captivity is really hard to fuck with.
Yeah. That's a great episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's again, another one that I wasn't on, big thanks to Jeremy. But I love that episode.
Yeah.
So much. It's a really cool lore thing.
Yeah.
The idea that, the world allows these super science things to happen, but there are a couple things that are just no. Yeah. It in a world where people can invent impossible things, it's very interesting to have a solid answer for what happens when someone invents something that would literally change the world.
It is way more interesting to me than all of the OSI stuff that is developed in season 5. Just the fact that they were waiting for him to invent teleportation and then have them swing it and say, actually, no, capitalism's going to take the wheel on this one. We're going to have to have you bury this.
I would have loved to have seen follow up with that.
Yeah. It's really disenchanting actually. And I love that.
Yeah. It's really good. That is for sure. My favorite episode of the season.
Yeah.
And then if I had to choose, a second or honorable mention, it'd be Arrears in Science.
Oh yeah.
The one that brings together the Morphic trilogy, that isn't about either individual storyline, but it's just the reveals with Jonas Sr. is really cool.
Yeah.
To me, not super funny, just really interesting. And then we also got the Triad.
Yep.
For that, which makes me happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love them.
Yeah. That's first and worst.
That's first and worst. I was thinking about trying to do a first and worst for the series, but that's too hard.
That's way too hard. Yeah. I can't, I'm not going to, because it changes so much. It's kind of like first and worst REM song,
Yes.
Like, ooh, that's hard.
If I have to, like, without being held to it, I don't want to be at like St. Peter's Gate being held to this. It might be Operation Prom.
Yeah,
that might be my favorite episode of the Venture Brothers.
Yeah,
It's really good. It's really funny. All the humor is character based.
Mm-hmm.
It has tons of heart. I love that resolution of Brock and Molotov. I love that resolution of 21.
Mm-hmm. I love the resolution with Dean and Triana.
Yes. It just incredible. Like great episode. Like I would have been, I'm glad that wasn't the series finale because a lot of cool stuff happened after that. But I do think that is the best finale the show has.
Yeah.
In it.
Undoubtedly, that is them firing on every cylinder.
Yep. Just really, really good stuff.
Yep. And I still get goosebumps when I hear that Pulp song. So
yeah. And I don't even care about Pulp. I'm not a Pulp guy. It's just they just use it so perfectly.
Yeah.
It's such a masterful episode. Mm-hmm. Like just really, really good. Yeah. The conversation with the Rusty Venture. No, like just James Urbaniak just making those noises. That episode is very hard to fuck with.
Yeah.
Exceedingly good.
But as far as like grand thoughts, I don't know that I have any. I kind of dreaded that coming in. Like I don't have a huge summation. I feel like I've said what I need to say, and also it feels like a jinx to say this is the last word on the Venture Brothers when there's more of it coming. So yeah,
it's been real fun to do this deep dive, even when it has been disillusioning. Mm-hmm. Things that I did not notice. Wasn't bothered by the Monarch's character arc when I first watched the show, in part because I just wasn't paying very close attention, and in part because there were these long breaks between seasons, so I wasn't getting that continuity. That would lend itself to it. But I like a deep read. I would rather see something for how it is than how I want it to be.
Yeah.
And I would rather appreciate the things that I appreciate about it. Even if that means there are some things that I feel like it could be improved. It was worth it to me. It was a really valuable experience to do it.
And it's not like, oh, I saw these things and I'm going to leave the Venture Brothers in the dust. A couple years, I'll feel, I'll want to at least a
1 through 4.
1 through 4, or, pick highlights from the last seasons or so. Yeah.
100%. And it's going to be, given if my prediction is correct that the movie, if it comes out, will be years down the road, it'll be really hard not just to do a rewatch right before the movie.
Yeah.
In terms of, like a venture, like in terms of, no pun intended, in terms of like a grand creative thing, so I know that like through this, we've been critical because it's our job, but I have so much admiration for what these two guys were able to pull off. And how weird it is.
Yeah.
There's nothing like it. It changed Adult Swim in terms of, setting an expectation for the level of register that Adult Swim should have. They followed every dumb idea that they had in a way that I really admire. Like when they were like, let's do a t-shirt of the month club and make it expensive and make them very specific and obscure.
Yeah.
And they succeeded. Like they liked it, and they talked about it being a nightmare. They talk about different ones not selling well and stuff. I know there are associated headaches for them, but it's really cool to watch people do something so boldly anti-commercial or anti-conventional business wisdom in a creative project.
Yeah.
Very admirable to me.
Agreed. That instinct, I think, led them to making some bad decisions, but like it's a good instinct that just incidentally gave us, we're going to, focus on S464 and Kimberly McManus. Right.
It's a double-edged sword.
Yes. But like, it wouldn't be risky if there wasn't risk associated. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, and you don't know when you make a risk, you don't know whether it pays off.
Yeah.
Like to them, it could have been the same thing as killing off the boys or killing off the clone farm. Like that felt risky to them, I'm sure, at the time. Like they felt very confident about it. Doing this thing, even though it's counterintuitive because it means that they have to break out of their, adventure of the week, life has no meaning, kind of mold. They might have felt similarly like, hey, let's focus on these side characters and maybe we'll strike gold.
Yeah.
Maybe this will really resonate and work. There's a discovery through creation process on display throughout the entirety of the Venture Brothers. And for us, we get to look at it once it's done with that knowledge they did not have.
Yes.
we know the Monarch never pays off. We know that Kimberly McManus shit was a nonsense waste of time. They didn't know it when they didn't know it until they did it. So I stand by us being like, yeah, we have to evaluate the work as it was, but I still really admire the spirit of what they were doing in terms of trying to discover. Very beautiful. We do that we say that as a cliche, like on the network as like a joke thing, but it's very beautiful, I think, as a creative work.
So I'm excited, curious if and when we get the movie, watching with bated breath to see what the result is. Kind of like, I'm sure they're watching with bated breath. Like I don't get the sense that anybody involved with creative, over there has any idea what the execs are going to do. So,
well, I would really love to know, I'm sure they are waiting with bated breath. I don't know what they're doing now. And it's got to be something, right? Like I think that they are still working, but you do get that sense through like commentaries and through the show that they've grown apart and become perhaps less interested. I'm sure they want to put a button on it. So I'm sure they are waiting with bated breath, but I'm really curious as to where their level of investment is.
Yes.
The same way for us that when we were watching the show as it came out, we'd have these year-long breaks between seasons. Those breaks weren't breaks for them.
Right.
So while, we watched 7 seasons of a show and we got a couple of years to do whatever we wanted in between those seasons, they were working on those seasons in between.
Yeah.
I could see them just literally being done with it because they've been doing it for over a decade. So I'm just very curious about it. I really hope that they are still invested enough to give the work like the send off that I think the work deserves, even if I understand whatever their individual feelings on it are.
Yeah.
So, yeah, beautiful boys.
Yep. And don't know how to end this other than to say, if you are interested in our television recap approach, Best Quality Vacuum is on its way.
Yeah. Tone might be a little different.
Yeah.
It's a arguably a more serious show.
Yes.
We're still going to make jokes and stuff, but there's going to be, I think there's going to be a lot more gushing about performances and lines and stuff. It's worth I don't think either of those shows are flawless, but the level of enthusiasm I have is at this weird fevered pitch for it. And people, I think that it is, it'll play really well with fans of those shows. Not exclusively. I'd love it for everyone to give it a shot, but I think that it's going to be a little bit of a love fest.
Yeah. It'll be a while because we have to get through Breaking Bad, but I want people to take it as an opportunity to get into Better Call Saul, especially if they bounced off of it in the first 2 seasons.
Well, I also want people to take an opportunity to get into Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
There's, neither of those shows are what their simple log line is, which is kind of the shared DNA with Venture Brothers, right?
Yeah.
Like Venture Brothers seems like a Johnny Quest cartoon parody, but there was depth there that's worth looking at. If you don't know any better, you're like, oh, Breaking Bad is just the violent crime show. And it's really not, and Better Call Saul is not just the goofy lawyer show.
No.
There's a lot more going on there.
It's the heartbreak of rejection.
It's the heartbreak of rejection that comes when the world will not stoop to your level. The anger you feel when people will not be as bad as you are. And the 2 different approaches to exploring what a bad person does to the people and world around them as kind of this like epicenter of rot is really masterfully done.
Yeah. Just shows about walking disasters.
Yep. Yeah. Fascinating. And there are other shows. Check out their other shows. This doesn't have to be goodbye, even if there is not a movie.
Yeah.
Follow us to other stuff.
Please do.
Yeah. We appreciate you. This has been really fun.
This has just in the wrap up. I would like to thank some people who have been pretty important.
Absolutely,
3 names right here. So thank you, Brayton Cameron, the unnamed third voice, who does the intros, the SNL style episode announcements.
It's gonna be real weird when he does those for Breaking Bad.
And the bags in the river.
Duckfeed presents Down Over ABQ. Down.
Huge thanks to Gwen, who composed our excellent theme song.
Yep. Absolutely. And Joshua.
Joshua Jarrett for doing our key art, for doing the cover art, both the logo and the album cover, the show art, all very excellent, and all people who have done great stuff. Thanks to all of our guests as well. Too many to name,
yes,
but helped make the show what it is.
Yeah, probably not that many to name. We kind of fell off doing that, and we
did, yeah.
That's guest, but to be a couple of people asked about that, and it's like, well. We didn't want to just have the same people back over and over. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people I know who like the Venture Brothers stopped watching.
Yes.
So it became difficult to find fresh voices without cold calling. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to cold call.
Yeah, that would be rough.
Yeah. Thank you very much to our guest, and big thanks specifically to Jeremy for subbing in when I was sick.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Cool. Well, we got to do it.
Yeah,
one last one for now.
Finally, give it to me. Give it to me.
Go Team Venture.